Well, a lot has been going on lately, and in the top of the news, Oscar-winning actor and comedian Robin Williams has died, apparently by his own hand. So, let's get into it. I believe it came as a shock to everyone that someone like Robin Williams would take his own life. After all, he had a lot going for him and enjoyed a life that most people dream about. There's also the apparent irony of the roles that he played where he lifts the spirits of other people. Patch Adams, Good Will Hunting, Good Morning Vietnam, and perhaps the most ironic of all, When Dreams May Come, where he had to save the lost soul of his wife who committed suicide. That said, all one has to really do is look at his chart to find that there was a whole lot of things going on. Now, before even looking, being told that this was a suicide, I already knew that there was going to be something with Pisces, its ruler Neptune, or the house that it rules, which is the 12th house. Because Pisces and the 12th house are the house and sign of self-undoing, among other things. So when we take a look at Robin Williams' chart, we immediately notice that he has Moon in Pisces, Sun in Cancer, and his ascendant, his rising sign, is Scorpio, which are all water signs. So right out of the gate, he's a very, very extremely emotional guy. We see quite obvious traits in his personality, with Jupiter in the 5th house in Aries. That expansive planet of Jupiter being in the 5th house, which is Leo's house, that's the house of romance, children, but it's also the house of the stage, being in the spotlight. This Leo and the 5th house is very, very connected to actors. And we see that it's in the sign of Aries, where Aries is cardinal fire, the beginning of fire, very, very powerful out of the gate. And we see this when Robin Williams would be sitting there and immediately jump up and go into a routine without warning. Now over in Leo, conjunct the midheaven, we have Pluto and Mercury conjunct. And this shows the powerful voice of Robin Williams. It would be very, very difficult to speak over Robin Williams. When he spoke, people shut up and listened. A very powerful speaker, Robin Williams. And these are just a couple traits that we know him by that are immediately obvious in the chart. But what about the not so obvious ones? What would drive such a talented and brilliant comedian and actor, wildly successful, to commit suicide? Well, we're now hearing reports that he had early stages of Parkinson's. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not a doctor. I don't know Robin Williams personally. I'm a magician, and that's all I can go by. But there are signs in his chart of emotional instability and alcohol and drug abuse, which, by the way, is ruled by Neptune, which rules over the sign of Pisces as well. When we look at Neptune in Robin Williams' chart, it is square Mars, which is conjunct Uranus in Cancer, and it's opposition to Jupiter in Aries. So Neptune is causing some problems all the way around in the chart of Robin Williams. Now, when we look at the transits, this is where it gets interesting. You may remember I said previously that Mars is the killer in the horoscope. Sometimes Pluto, but generally it's Mars. Saturn rules the dead, but kind of after they're dead. Well, when looking at the transits, the first thing we see is that Saturn and Mars both are sitting right on his ascendant. Mars still being in the 12th house, the house of self-undoing. Natal Pluto is square transiting Saturn, while transiting Pluto has an opposition to his natal Mars and Uranus. These are some heavy, heavy destructive influences. Transiting Neptune is conjunct his moon in Pisces. This is certainly not going to make recovering from addiction and staying sober any easier. But yet we also have this grand trine between natal moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune, transiting Mars on his ascendant, and natal Mars and Uranus in the 8th house in Cancer. And that transiting Mars is in the 12th house as well. And all of this right there shows a definite possibility of suicide. Mars being the killer, Mars in the 12th house, that house of self-undoing, right conjunct his ascendant. But yet it's trine his natal Mars and Uranus in the 8th house, the house of sex, death, and transformation in Cancer. Uranus is always sudden and shocking. Mars is about action, doing it, going for it. It's the killer, though. It's the one that causes accidents and violence and, things on the negative side of Mars. But in this case, this trine made it very, very easy for Robin Williams to commit suicide if he was having those kind of thoughts, to actually go through with it. And then you throw the moon and Neptune conjunct in Pisces into the mix, and yeah, this is a recipe for disaster. And any of these transits are difficult to deal with alone. With Saturn being on the ascendant, Pluto being opposite his Mars. So yeah, he was dealing with some pretty heavy things. The irony, though, is that he had the answer to depression in his role from Good Will Hunting. And if you go back and look at the Even Flow video that I put out, he's showing you, with Matt Damon, how to get rid of an emotional blockage, because that's really the main cause of depression. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm a magician. And as a magician, I know that if the circuit is clogged up, the machine can't operate correctly. So we're going to have to get into how to remove emotional blockages. And it's one of those lessons that I've been putting off because it's a heavier one. But I think that considering the circumstances of everything that's been going on and people talking about depression more, because of Robin Williams bringing it to light, that I think it would be a good time to go ahead and do that. And we will do that next time. See you then. Take care.